Yo, it's Cori. As random as it gets, this is a full tutorial of a still life observation painting and drawing. So first things first, get a good pencil. And what I'm doing here is to scale up where I want to put my still life object in the middle of the paper. Because the most common mistake students make is that it's either too small or too big. So generally what you want to get right is the proportions of what you're seeing. And it doesn't matter how rough your pencil marks are, as long as you place them down. And what I advise students to do is that try not to draw it with a rough press, means draw it gently, in case you do erase. But for me, a rule is not to use eraser if you can help it. So I do get impatient, that's why my lines are becoming contour, continuous line drawing. It's a good practice. Now let's get started. I'm using gouache because I recently fell in love with it and it's convenient. So I'm putting a cobalt blue down because I find that it's a good base for what I'm seeing. Especially the subject is green, I'm going to start with a dark shade of blue. I'm using a similar method called layering. I would say the base layer should always be a dark shade of color before you go on to light colors. But it depends on your preference as well. At this point, I'm mixing a sort of turquoise blue because the pot is a bit lighter, like a mustard yellow. I've learned this from a teacher in Taiwan to see beyond the subject for what it is and count on what you already know. In terms of colors that you think would really enhance the depth of the subject. Next, I'm going on to the second layer, and that would be the primary color. But I'm adding a shade of brown to it because it's quite dark from where I'm seeing and it's also dying. From my perspective, that's how you interpret the subject. I'm not really saying winging it, but it really depends how you want to stylize it at the end of the day. Only when you've understood what you're seeing, you'll have less problems achieving the intended results that you want. So for the pot, I'm already adding the third layer, which is the lighter part of the color, to really emphasize on the shadow and where the lightest part should be. Some people have a preference of using different brush sizes, but for me, I felt that I'm lazy and I'm able to manipulate my brush in different ways, so that's convenient for me. Do take a step back to take a look at your work and see what needs to be added on, because after it dries, sometimes it's a bit lighter. You might want to emphasize on the shadows area. In the beginning, when I was introduced to gouache, it's a bit difficult to manipulate because it's in between oil painting and watercolor. So you might not want to add so much water because when you do that, it sort of blends in with the color that you used to have. So that would kind of remove what you had before. So this is just the basic on how to attempt a still life painting. Basic observation studies could take you about 3 hours, but it took me about 1.5, so that's alright. Hope you like that. Thanks.